known as a country of enthusiasm and optimism, of a can-do spirit of engineering. New York was built on this can-do spirit of engineering. But New York is also a place of corruption. And so it's a place where people know that sometimes the bureaucracy will let you down, that you have to grease somebody's palm. So there's a different relationship to venality, to moral iniquity, more of an acceptance of it, that this is what people are like, you know? They're not perfect, they're not angelic.
To be a citizen of New York is a disgrace. The New Yorker belongs to a community worse governed by lower and baser blackguard scum than any city in Western Christendom. George Templeton Strong.
Wow, that's amazing. He summed it up.
In the summer of 1871, as work on the Brooklyn Bridge began, New York City exploded in the biggest political scandal of its history. At the center of the storm stood another structure, only 100 yards away from the New York entrance to the bridge. An unfinished stone courthouse that by 1871 was entering its 12th year of construction, with no end in sight. The revelations about to emerge from it would show how politics worked in the sprawling commercial metropolis. They would also immortalize one man above all as the most corrupt urban politician in American history, Boss William M. Tweed.
If New York was going to have corruption, if New York was going to have a corrupt politician, it was going to have the biggest and most corrupt of anybody. And he was new. He was a new kind of corrupt politician. That, too, is part of it.
Boss Tweed, the name is associated with purely bad things now. The Tammany organization really was one of those local, shady organizations that also did do a lot of good things for the people they were supposed to be representing.
For years, a new kind of political organization had been rising from the streets of the Lower East Side. It was called Tammany Hall, and the men who ran it had few illusions, no ideology, and no ideals. What they had was a shrewd grasp of the new political opportunities in the sprawling city of immigrants. Reaching out to New York's despised and downtrodden Irish and German newcomers, Tammany alone offered them comfort and a voice in the system, knowing that on election day, they would reap the gratitude of the new voters.
Does that sound familiar? What does Tammany Hall sound like today?
People who are just off the boat, who are looking to make a way in the world, Tammany provided them with, an awful lot of real services. In these days, when so many people needed help, your kid's in trouble with the law, or your child's not doing well in school, you can't pay the rent, your husband's out of work, or your husband has just died, you're about to be evicted, you're looking for a job. Any of these kinds of things require the intervention of someone. And for an awful lot of people, that someone or something was Tammany, or the local Tammany leader.
Nothing was as famous as Tammany Hall. No American political figure has ever been quite as famous or as infamous as Boss Tweed. But we need to remember why it was that the political machine had such attraction to these immigrants.
Remember. Boss Tweed they're talking about the headquarters for the Department of Education too. Tweed Courthouse.
Fireman and one-time chairmaker from the Lower East Side. There had never been anyone quite like William M. Tweed. Over 6 feet tall and nearly 300 pounds, he was surprisingly nimble and graceful on his feet. Caricatured by his Republican opponents as a vulgar, hard-drinking Irishman, he was in fact a fourth-generation Scots Protestant, unfailingly courteous and nearly teetotal. He was also a superb politician who took care of his mainly immigrant constituency, providing jobs for the unemployed, coal in winter, and orphanages, hospitals, and shelters for the poor.
He was one of the first people who saw the power of mass politics in the cities. And for all his thievery, there was the recognition of mobilizing this mass of people to some political end. I think he's not remembered for that. He's remembered for the $50 million that he stole, which if you wanted to get the equivalent today, multiply times 10.
Accelerating New York's already explosive growth still further, Tweed and his associates brazenly siphoned off staggering sums from the hundreds of city projects under their control, and helped robber barons like Jay Gould and Jim Fisk make off with still more. There were lucrative contracts for grateful builders, who happily paid Tammany's leaders enormous cash kickbacks to get them. There were thousands of jobs for Tammany's loyal constituents, who gratefully voted Tammany's leaders back in power.
Again and again, just like the song. I think they left out food too. I'm sure they were providing food. And again, who does this remind you of? Who provides food? Who provides housing? Who provides everything on the taxpayer dollar?
New York's upper classes, meanwhile, professed to be appalled, but quietly looked the other way as real estate values in the city skyrocketed. It all worked like a machine, a political machine, and no one knew how that machine worked better than William Tweed, who by 18...
Yes, Tweed, and thank goodness for this whole contraption. Real estate values keep getting higher and higher. What does that remind you of? Well, this is just food for thought. Thank goodness. Thank you, Boss Tweed. Thank you, everyone. Peace out.